Good evening. Welcome to the TOWTalk Podcast. My name is Denise, and I am here with my co host, Neil. And this evening, we are going to discuss the Hands Off Tish event that you went to. And then you said that you went to this yesterday.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so what? So tell me about this.
So it was interesting. It was a supportive event sponsored by the NAACP,
Okay.
right?
NAACP.
Yep, and they basically were like, so as we all know, and I'm sure many of us here in New York and maybe outside New York know, our Attorney General is Tish James. um, and she was the one who prosecuted Donald Trump, and got a conviction. Was it 37 count felony convictions
34
on
felony
Donald
convictions.
30 felony convictions of Donald Trump, related to campaign finance and various other schemes that he had going on. So in retaliation, Trump tried his personal lawyer. He appointed his personal lawyer illegally to the position of, was it U.S. Attorney General
Yep.
in that area, and decided to indict Tish James. That failed because Lindsay Halligan apparently was appointed illegally. You
Yep.
know, let's forget about the fact that Trump is committing crimes left and right. We don't care about that, right? Because that doesn't matter. He's the president. Presidents are apparently above the law and allowed to do whatever they want. Whatever. So then he tried to indict her again. He got a
They
new
weren't interested.
prosecutor,
They weren't
right?
even
New U.S.
interested.
attorney from either Missouri or whatever, and they tried to indict her again, and were unable to indict her. It was a very interesting event. The president of the local chapter of the NAACP spoke. There were a bunch of other speakers. The mayor of Middletown spoke. James Skoufis had a representative who spoke, and I believe Pat Ryan also had a representative that came and spoke.
Oh, really? Where was this held?
This was held at um, the Second Baptist Church in Middletown. So here,
Oh
I'm going
my
to share the.
God! You didn't tell
Yeah,
me. I would have been.
yeah.
There she
So
is.
it was between it was between like 1 and 2:30. Tish James did have a recorded message for us. Um, and it was a very interesting event. Basically, it's what are we doing in our communities locally to help, right? Help fight the authoritarianism that is going on around us. Okay. In other words,
Yeah,
how do we defend our attorney general? How do we defend our immigrant populations? How do we defend, us Americans against what is being viewed
yeah.
as increased authoritarianism
Increased.
by this administration. And there were a lot of good, thoughtful points. The Mayor DeStefano, got up to speak. He had spoken about how, one morning he was having coffee or whatever, and how, a U.S. citizen who is Hispanic wasn't able to leave her house because ICE was sitting outside her house. Okay. Um, she's an
Incredible.
American citizen, she's a US citizen. But she was afraid to go out of her house.
And you
Um,
have to be because they have scooped up Americans and held them for days at a time and longer. And and some have been disappeared. So we have to. It's sad that this is the time that we're living in right now.
right.
But go on.
So yeah, so that was basically it, and it was, we need to do a better job in organizing. We need to bring people together. I mean, these are our communities. Right? I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. I really don't. I don't care whether you're Republican, Democrat, MAGA, not MAGA, left, progressive, whatever the hell you are. These are our communities. These are our people. Okay? These are people that came here, right, looking for a better life. We all are here to try to gain a better life for ourselves, for our kids, all right? And you know, to have people in our community who feel unsafe
Yeah.
because of whether it be this type of prosecution against Tish James, right? Like this
Yeah, malicious prosecution.
malicious prosecution against Tish James, or whether it be ICE, being used as the Gestapo, right? Or like it's all the same, right? Like it's our job to help protect our residents. Okay. These people live here. Mom Donnie recently came out with a statement and he said the same thing. He will do everything he can to protect, our immigrant populations. And, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Like we have to do better. Like this is coming. This is
Yep.
all coming. And it's
And
coming for all of us now. It's coming for all of us. It was announced last night after after apparently a nickname, right, of our president came out, the napper in chief.
oh, that's a new
Um,
one.
yeah,
The
yeah.
never
Apparently that one is
dozing on.
sticking. Right,
Dozy
that one's right. Apparently that one is sticking. Napper in chief is sticking. And he went on a big tirade last night, and he basically demanded that Kash Patel start putting together a list, right? Just like Nixon had an enemies list, right, of people he deems un-American, right? He deems, pro-immigrant, and he deems to be basically anti his administration. And
That's going to be an
I
awful long list.
but when Nixon came, when it came out that Nixon had an enemies list, the public was outraged at that. The public demanded accountability and responsibility among our politicians to be like, this is unacceptable behavior. Congress has oversight. Where the hell is Congress? Like where the hell are these people saying this is unacceptable? Like I had to hear about Benghazi for fucking 8 years, 9
How long? They
years. I'm
still talk
hearing
about it. Are you telling me
Right.
that?
We're still talking about it. But like none of the Congress isn't investigating anything. Congress is just like, I heard Jeffries today and he sounded like a clueless clown, you know? Um like he was talking about healthcare, right? And he goes, well, I'm for universal healthcare, and we'll talk about healthcare another time. And he goes, but nothing has ever been introduced. Wow, if only there was a leader in power, right, who would be willing to introduce such a bill. Not only that, that was a lie, because in March a bill was introduced both in the House and the Senate for universal healthcare. So, like, it's just as I said the other night, it's these aren't leaders.
No, they're on the payroll of the billionaires. So they're playing.
Right.
They're playing both sides, and one side is going to be the party of power, and the other side they are working to eliminate, because that's the party that could really take them down if they got their shit together.
No, well, that's the thing. They again, you keep saying they have their shit together. They are doing exactly what they're intending to do, which is to
Lay down.
and keep the progressives wanting something without ever giving it to them, right? Like that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a party that Gavin Newsom said, we want to be the party of a big tent, right? But then he said that the wealth tax is off the table. Okay. And my feeling is okay, how many billionaires are Democrats? Right? Like how many of these billionaires are Democrats, right? This is an 80% popular, this is 80% of the American population is for a wealth tax. Okay. And you have news, and remember that 20% is most likely Republican. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And many Republicans are for a wealth tax. Let's be clear about that. So I'm not singling out Republicans, but many Republicans are for a wealth tax. Who are you catering to? Who in your party, right? Like you say big tent, but what does that mean? Because it's not a big tent if you're completely dismissing 80% of the people in your party, in your tent.
Yeah. particularly
right.
particularly when the constituents are saying this is what they want, right?
Not even a compromise, nothing. Just this is their stance right from the get-go. And if that's your stance right from the get-go, you completely disqualify yourself for any higher office.
Yeah.
My opinion. You
Yeah.
completely disqualify yourself.
So we'll just, whoops, don't spill the water. I saw
Yeah.
that.
No, I'm not.
Uh,
Nope.
but I'll use this opportunity to remind everybody the importance of primaries and the importance of we need to vote against corporate money, PAC money. And it's interesting to note because I just saw this earlier today. So let me just share my screen. Da, da, da. There we go. All right. So the Supreme Court could topple yet another campaign finance limit. So, Supreme Court could eliminate one of the remaining checks on money in politics in a case that worries advocates fighting the influence of deep-pocketed donors, which is exactly what we're talking about. In a challenge involving Vice President J.D. Vance, the court will consider on December 9th, that's tomorrow, the Republican Party's argument for overturning a 2001 decision that upheld a rule aimed at preventing wealthy donors from bypassing limits on what they can give candidates by funneling money through political parties. Since that 5-4 decision, the court has become more conservative, and campaign finance law has changed, both by Congress and through other Supreme Court rulings, striking down various rules as improper restrictions on political speech under the First Amendment. Most specifically, we could talk about Citizens United. Republicans argue the altered landscape means the court should now scrap the limit on how much political parties can spend in coordination with candidates for federal offices. Now, this is pretty scary. The 5-4 aberration was egregiously wrong the day it was decided, and developments both in the law on the ground in the 24 years since have only further eroded its foundations, lawyers for the Republican Party told the court. Former Senator Russ Feingold, Democrat from Wisconsin, who authored other campaign finance rules that have been partially overturned by the Supreme Court, wrote in a brief for the case that getting rid of the coordinated spending limits would be the next step in the march toward allowing unlimited money to swamp American elections and drown out the will of the voters. But the court could also avoid the issue by dismissing the case after hearing it. After President Trump took office, the Justice Department stopped defending the rule. And it goes on. I'm not going to go into the rest of it, but there's the beginning of that argument. Let me stop sharing.
Yeah, they're going to overturn that. It's fine. I mean,
Yeah.
listen, they've already determined that money is that free speech, money and free speech go hand in hand. But here's what I'm going to say. It doesn't. Okay? Because here's the thing. If you are a billionaire and you want to donate to a campaign or you want to push what you believe, okay, on the internet, okay, that's perfectly acceptable and that's considered free speech. But when you have people organizing, and again, not making a political statement here, but when you have people organizing, right, around Palestine, okay, right, or boycotts against Israel, okay, what you hear from our politicians is that's illegal. They're creating laws against that, right? So one form of speech, political speech, right, is considered free speech. Another form of political speech is considered illegal and not free speech. Okay. And that is I'm only giving an example. I mean, and there are plenty of examples of that, right? But I'm just trying to give one of the most egregious examples that in my opinion, that I view as being egregious, only because of the fact that that there's not actual a belief here, right?
Yeah.
There's not a belief, like there's not a belief in our system, okay, that money is speech, right? Like our politicians don't believe that. They don't
Right,
believe
but
money is speech.
so as we've gone through, and we can go all the way back to, I think it was in 1979, the Chevron deference, one of the first cases in
Yeah.
which the Supreme Court basically identified a corporation as an individual. This is like the conservative playbook where they have been taking non-persons and trying to give them the rights of being an actual person, starting with corporations, which is what's kind of leading as we go through these series of cases that have led to Citizens United and now, the very
But
real.
I'm
Oh,
gonna throw out one thing at you,
okay.
right? I believe it's Colorado, okay, is the first state to actually attempt to codify that corporations are not people.
And that's what other states need to do. That's
Right.
what.
So they're taking it up at the state level, okay? The idea, so it doesn't matter what the federal government says. States' rights, right, supersede, right, federal rights on certain issues, especially in corporations, right? Because you get incorporated in a given
In
state.
a given
You
state,
don't
right?
The federal government does not incorporate anybody.
True.
Okay,
Yep.
it's the state laws that incorporate people. All the federal government did is say, well, speech is money, and corporations are entitled to free speech, which kind of alluded to the fact that they are individuals, but that could be changed at the state level.
Yes.
That could easily just be changed at the state level. And again, why is it not being changed at the state level? Money. I
Money.
keep going back to it. Money. The politicians are taking that money. They want that money. Everything is about money.
Always
Okay?
has been.
So always has been. You just follow the money. These guys don't want those laws. They don't want them here in New York. They don't want them, in any state, because at the end of the day, that big money is what pays your politicians' bills. That's what keeps them getting reelected. They're never going to go against their corporate overlords. So
That's probably the reason
again,
why we don't. Why do you think we don't have term limits in Congress?
right, or
Uh,
anywhere,
yeah,
even
they
at the
they
local level, we barely have term
we
limits.
have, yeah, right here in our town we don't have term limits, but
State
term limits are
governor.
so important because once you take the
uh,
term limits, once you put the term limits into the game, then it kind of invalidates their money because they can't hold that power. I mean, they could get other people elected, but they want to be there. Like, look at how much money they make while they're in office, right? We can talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene, who walked into Congress 5 years ago, value with a net worth of less than $1 million, and walked out $25 million richer.
Oh,
You know?
please, all of them are doing that. Fetterman
Yeah.
did
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Like Fetterman made all his money, and here's the funny part. Like most people don't realize when Fetterman took office, he didn't really have a lot of money. When he first became mayor of that small town, right? Like he didn't have a lot of money. He came out of there with like $600,000 or $700,000. He came out of there almost a millionaire, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he pushed development. Right? Well, how did he personally obtain that wealth through this is what I keep telling people, right? Right?
That's
Like
the corruption. It's right in your
that's what
backyard.
I keep going back there to. We keep talking about corporations, but when it comes to building, it comes to development, when it comes to doing these things, it's all at a local level, right? So what's happening at that local level? Look at Amazon warehouse, right? Yeah, the
Mm-hmm.
Amazon warehouse that is coming in locally. That's not state regulators. you
Yeah.
know, that's your IDA, your local IDA, your local planning board, your local zoning board, your local town board, right? Like, look at the money that these guys throw in. And it's not about jobs. It's not about this. It's not
Nope.
about that, you know.
It's about money and
Although,
power and holding control.
right, it's about
It's
money,
why
power, and holding control.
and
Correct.
we as citizens, the only power that we really have is to focus on grassroots efforts. And it's not easy, I mean, obviously, money, when you have that kind of money, then you have a big vehicle to spread your message. You can pay for advertising on television, but thankfully television is getting less and less popular. A lot of people are ditching Spectrum or Comcast or whatever you got in favor of streaming. So that creates new avenues that regular people like us can get into to spread messages. And so, the only way to really fight back is using our power of numbers, really, volume of numbers, and finding candidates, finding leaders that align. Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
This was the point of the meeting yesterday. So getting back to our meeting yesterday.
Oh,
this is
yeah, the whole
exact
reason why we're having this
right.
conversation.
Well, and that's where we led to, right? It's the idea of organizing, right? Again, so I'm going to go back to something that was a real theme, and it really bothered me. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little about what bothered me. All right, one of the themes is getting out to vote, right, and electing people, right, and the way what disturbed me most was, you had the mayor of Middletown talking about electing Democratic candidates who are for the people, but yet he endorsed 2 Republicans.
Yes, he did. Yeah,
Okay,
Valentin
for the
is
county legislature. Okay, and so it was very telling to me, because I thought the whole thing, there at the end of the day, right? Leaders have 3 traits, okay, that really are important, that we all need. They need to have courage,
Yep.
okay? They need to have courage, right? To stand up. They have to have a belief system, and they have to be and they have to work for the people that elected them. They have to represent something, and they have to believe in something. This is where our politicians all fall flat. They are not leaders. They see a crowd running by, and they turn around and they say, "Where are those people going? I'm their leader. I'm the one that's supposed to be at the front." Okay? That's what they do. That is not leadership.
No.
Okay? That's scamming. That's a scam artist, right? Hakeem Jeffries, no offense, is a scam artist. Okay? He talks a good game, but at the end of the day, he has no belief system. And in fact, none of the Democrats in office, right, who are part of that corporatist political machine, have any type of belief system whatsoever. Okay?
Because they have to stick with the belief system that they are paid to believe by their corporate owners. I'm not going to say
Correct.
donors, they're owners at this point.
Right. And my feeling is what needs to happen is people need to start looking around their local community and finding leaders, finding people who are willing to stand up to power, finding people who are willing to speak, right, and use
Yeah.
their voice and have courage. Okay? Listen, I'm not trying to say like I'm anything special, because I don't really believe I am, but there were points in time when I was in office where I could have just kept my mouth shut and not said a goddamn word. And I'm sure that the idiots in office would have been more than happy for that to have occurred, right? Because I didn't have to talk about the accounting at all. I didn't have to defend, the former supervisor. But the thing is I was about doing what was right.
Yeah.
Okay? Right was best for my constituents in this town. Okay? Whether they agreed with me or not, you have to have the courage to stand up for what's right. And these politicians today, they don't do that. Okay? They talk a good game, but they don't actually do it. That new woman, Gravalda, and Anita Gravalda in Arizona, right?
Analita
And Alita,
Grijalva. I think it's
right,
Analita Grijalva.
right. She stood up with her constituents, right, against ICE, who was doing a raid at a restaurant she
I
was
heard about this.
dining at.
Yeah.
And they threw tear gas at her.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
Right?
Sprayed her with pepper spray.
Right? And like see, this is right? That's leadership, because she's not standing from a million miles away, right? Saying, oh,
So
we got
shame.
to stop this. We got to stop this. What a shame. She is there in her community, talking with her constituents, trying to understand their needs and trying to respond to those needs, right? Where the hell are our politicians?
Yeah.
Where the
Yeah.
hell are they?
Yeah.
Okay, going on TV, raising money, saying, oh, yeah, I'm against this or I'm for this, right? But no
Write me a
bills,
check.
no discharge petitions, nothing. You get the emails, help me fight, help me elect, help me do this. But at the end of the day, it's all bullshit. Like, so I heard there was a congressman from Texas, Democratic congressman from Texas, who voted with Trump on the defense authorization bill, right? Which was terrible, right? And had in it
Yeah.
a bunch of shit, right? For ICE and various other things, right? Voted on that. Trump gives him a pardon for his vote in exchange for his vote. Okay. This is how insidious this shit is, right? Gives him a pardon for his vote. Okay. Now, on top of which, he wasn't supposed to announce that he was going to run for reelection, essentially giving the Republicans the seat, right? He announces that he's going to run for election and he's going to remain a Democrat. And Hakeem
Nah.
Jeffries is like, he's a great guy. Yeah, we love him, blah, blah, blah.
Fuck
Fuck
no.
all of you. Fuck all of you. Right? Like he clearly stated when he said that he was going to remain a Democrat that he was a conservative, which means that he would continue voting against what Democrats want. So right there, the Democrats are already setting you up, okay,
To
for
fail.
the idea that no matter what happens, even if they retake the House, nothing will happen because this asshole over here, who sided with Trump, who claims to be a conservative, will get reelected as a Democrat. Wonderful. Hakeem Jeffries will be Speaker of the House, but nothing will ever get done because he won't bring anything to the floor because we will get the same bullshit we always get. Well, I don't have the votes. Instead of forcing people to vote, he'll just say, I don't have the votes. And he will give up without even trying. Okay? Because of assholes like that who continue to get reelected, even though they're showing themselves to be corrupt and willing to take bribes, right? Like the whole corruption
You kidding me?
is that he was taking bribes. Okay, he was taking bribes. Right?
I know. It's crazy, right?
For his vote. Okay, so what does he do? He takes a bribe from the president for his vote. Okay, and then announces, "I'm running for re-election." Bam!
Yeah, I don't think so, folks. That he's in Texas, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Primary. This is the guy you got to get out. This is what. Remember, I'm going back to cannibalizing. Yeah, that guy's got to go.
But it's like I wish I could say that was an isolated incident, right? Like,
But it's not. It's not.
It's just a pattern with the Democratic Party, right? Over and over again, it's the same nonsense. And it's got to stop. And again, I go to, these are not leaders of your community. Anybody looking at their politicians, their senators, their congressmen, their local officials, their councilmen, their aldermen, their mayors, their supervisors, their county legislators, their state legislators, their governor. Anybody who looks at any of these people and say, "Oh my God, our leaders are whatever," they are not your leaders. They are not your leaders. Your leaders are in your local community, and they're the ones advocating for you. Okay?
Yeah.
They're the ones that are usually, head of nonprofit organizations, or, they're advocates in your community who get paid very little or don't get paid at all, or volunteers, and they're fighting in their community to make sure that those assholes that you elect, okay, right, do the right by their citizens.
Yep. And if they don't, then you got to get them out, and you got to replace them. Look, primaries are going to be, we're entering into the campaign season for 2026, and there are so many of these Democrats that are rerunning again. They have to go. They have to go. Start from fresh. Look at people like Graham Plattner, like Kate Abigazale, and Afton Bain. I mean, let me
She
quick.
lost,
I know she lost.
unfortunately.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about it, but she lost. But hey, she moved that district 14 points to the left. Trump won that district by 22 points, and she came within, I think, 8 points of that seat. That's huge because that's a heavily gerrymandered district, and Tennessee is incredibly red. So, if that had been, let's say, a 10-point district, she actually would have won. It's just that it's so heavily gerrymandered, and to have that kind of a performance, I mean, this should have been a layup for the Republicans, and it wasn't. It was a fight, and they had to put a lot of money into it, and even Trump got involved in order to, push the votes over the line. So hey, you know what? I know you're disappointed. I could see it on your face.
No, it to me, it's sort of like, I keep saying it, the unaffiliated voter, right, is now greater than the Republicans and Democrats in any district.
Yep.
Okay, right? So the question is where have these two parties failed, right? And I think what you have a generation of political people who are savvy enough to realize that both parties have failed, both parties suck, and that the
Yeah.
propaganda that you've been fed by these oligarchs, right, for the past 50 years is garbage. Okay? And they've decided that they are writing a new playbook, right? Like Mamdani did, like Graham Plattner did, like Kat Abigazale did, like Afton Bain did, and the list goes on and on. AOC did it, right?
Yep.
Like we're seeing a laundry list of politicians that have decided that they're going to rewrite, everything, rewrite what they're, what they stand for, what Democrats stand for, and they're calling it democratic socialism or
Yep.
democratic, whatever they want to call it, right? And whether you call it Justice Democrats, whether you call it democratic socialism, whether you call it democracy, whether you call it populism, I don't give a shit what you call it, right? The fact is the current path we're on is wrong, and 80% of Americans know that the current path is wrong. They elected Trump because they knew the path was wrong. Okay,
And now the
but
path
now,
it's worse.
but now the path is really wrong, right? Like now, even a lot of people who voted for Trump, like, would never vote that way again.
Yeah. Yeah, probably not the
Because
base. But
well,
but that's a separate conversation.
I think there are a lot of people who are like staunch MAGA who are moving away from MAGA. The people who may not have been as racist or may not have been racist at all, right, are seeing the inherent racism
Yeah.
that is happening around them, and they don't want that. That's I mean, again, it's impacting our neighbors, our local communities. Our local
Yeah.
communities aren't safe. Like, listen, I'm white. My daughter's white. I mean, she goes to school, but I fear for her safety because ICE can come in and they don't discriminate.
Yeah.
They go after everybody who's in their path.
Yeah.
And I taught my daughter to stand up for her friends, and if it turns out that one of her friends is going to get attacked, she's going to stand up to them.
Right. Right.
And we've seen that when you stand in the face of these people, they're coming after you. Not only that, you have a lot. What's really really insidious, right, is this idea that you now have people pretending to be ICE
Oh, yeah.
and essaying women.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, right? And we live in New York. Couldn't have foreseen that at all, given the fact that let me remind people, I'm going to take people back in New York who may not be able to remember 20 years ago, but before before Andrew Cuomo took office, we had to ban unmarked police vehicles in New York.
For
Why
that
did we
very
have to
reason.
ban unmarked police vehicles in New York? Because people were buying old police cars, dressing them up, and then pulling women over and essaying them.
Yep,
Okay?
I remember
Who
that.
could have foreseen that? I don't know. Maybe
No
because we've
idea.
had laws against that in the past, and maybe because it's happened in the past. And what it's given predators, sexual predators, a ticket to do whatever the fuck they want. Oh, shocker, we have pedophile president, right, doing that exact same fucking thing now. All of a
Oh, yeah.
sudden, everybody, and who could have foreseen that? It was sort of like, when they talked about these masked agents, who could have like I'm at the, I was at the event. We saw this on the right, like one white guy. Who could have foreseen that we would have that masked men would go out in the street and just start snatching people off the street? I don't know.
I'm
Maybe black people in this community, right? Because it's happened before.
Yeah, that happened
And
in
that's
his
why I
first
keep
term.
No, well, even before that, it happened. It
Oh,
happened
yeah.
a long time ago when they were doing lynchings down south,
Yeah.
and except for it wasn't plain clothes and a bandana, it was a white hood and a burning fucking cross, and that's why I keep saying it's the same goddamn
Yeah,
thing,
it's the same people or their
And I'm
future
sorry, it does
generations.
outrage me, and it
Yeah.
outrages me to no end because of the fact that I'm sorry, I grew up with that imagery. Okay. I grew up learning about all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. And I thought I would never see it again in this country, but here it is. We're back. It's like let's it's make America. Let's recycle all the fucking garbage again. Right? This isn't make America great. This is let's recycle all the garbage and let's do everything all the crap that was illegal and that we hated the first time around. Let's just bring it all back at the same time.
Yeah, well, they're flooding the zones here. I will say this. Um, I guess was it last week when ICE was in the streets in the city? They pushed them back. I mean, it led to a number of arrests, but they stood their ground. And sometimes, if we're going to really stand up against this regime, you got to be willing to take risks. You got to be willing to put your bodies out there. It's the reason why I do go out and I do. Um, I've appeared at a number of protests and got my voice heard. I'm out there marching, just doing what I got to do to fight back. Um, and that's kind of, and again, it leads back to community. You got to stand up within your community. And the other way that we get through this is through our vote. And you know what? I heard something interesting. Maybe it was yesterday, I think, where they were talking about, what? A lot of people talk about how, Trump is going to stop voting, they're going to rig elections, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. If that's the case, why are the Republicans so concerned? Right? Why are they concerned about what's happening in the future, right? And we have all these Republicans that are
They're not
just
concerned about voting. They're concerned about public revolution, about the people rising up against their overlords. That's what they're concerned about, right? They're concerned about the protests in the street. They're concerned about people, more and more people taking to the streets, talking. They're concerned about podcasts like ours. That's what they're concerned about. They're concerned that people will speak truth to power. Again, it's courage and integrity. Okay? Where are find the people in your community that have courage and integrity. Those are your leaders. Those are the people that you should be following, not the empty suits, not the people who are going to be like, I'll throw you a party, like, kiss my ass. Like, I'm sick and tired of this shit, right? you know our politicians aren't overlords. Okay?
No, they'd
They're
like to be, but they're not.
they're not overlords. They're not somebody we need to kiss their ass.
They should be
They're
kissing
elected by
ours.
us.
Yeah,
Right.
they work for us. They seem to have
They don't
forgotten
own the
that.
seat. They don't own their seats. And so primary, they need to earn it. And if they aren't going to sit there and earn their seat and their spot, then they got to go. I hate the idea that Hakeem Jeffries is sitting there like, don't primary me, don't primary me.
Why not?
Why not? If you're doing such a great job and your constituents love you so much, okay, then go for it, right? Then you should be willing to say, you know what, primary me, I'm going to beat you,
Yeah, yeah.
okay?
No, he doesn't want to be primary because he wouldn't win. That's
Right.
why
Bingo.
he
That's
wouldn't
it.
win.
And that should, every Democrat in that community should start saying to themselves, why am I going to elect a guy who's so afraid to have an opponent? I mean, the Republicans. So there, a while ago, there was a Republican Speaker of the House, or Republican leader. Can't remember his name. I think he was from Georgia area. He was in the House. He was in leadership though, and he had done, and he had and the Tea Party, right, ran against him. Okay, the Tea Party primaried him, and the Tea Party won, and he lost his leadership position. What did Republicans do? They rallied around the new guy. They
Yeah,
said, okay, great, fine. You win. And they realized that that's where the party was going. So they moved there. And the laws and the bills they started passing were all Tea Party related.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Democrats don't do that. Right? Like Democrats, like, we're all like, we got power. We have to hold on to power. What good is having power if you are not
Don't
going to do anything with it?
right. You don't use it. We were very disappointed when we got control, of the House, and then we got the presidency, and then nothing was done to prevent the situation that the country is in right now. Like, a lot of laws could have been done, a lot of safeguards could have been put in place. Could have gotten somebody better than Merrick Garland, but that's another conversation.
I I I
Uh,
say I say right, like I've been saying for 50 years, Roe v. Wade was law, but it wasn't law, right? It was precedent. And what we
Precedent.
saw is we saw this Supreme Court say, we're going to overturn it. And that's the problem. Not one point in time did Democrats over the years codify it when they had control. And don't tell me that they never had power. They had power between 1970 and when it
73.
was overturned in the 2000s, right? They had over 50 years to overturn it, to basically codify it, and they refused to because it was such a good moneymaker for them. End of
Yeah.
story. It was a
I
good
will
money
say
maker for them.
this, I do know that there were a few attempts, but they would again, it was always, "We don't have enough votes."
And it was, it wasn't that they didn't have enough votes, right? Like, remember, it was that Democratic lawmaker said, this is unnecessary because it's already codified in law, and I don't want to vote for it because I have some constituents that wouldn't vote for me, right? It was all about keeping power. Again, that's a lack of courage.
Yeah.
There's a lack of courage because now women, right, all across the United States are suffering as a result of that. Okay?
Yes.
There
Yep.
there was a baby born, not to get sidetracked, but there was a baby born in Georgia, right, where the mother had been diagnosed as brain dead.
Yep.
And
That
basically the right wing fought in court, right? They fought in court that this woman should be used as a human incubator for this
yes.
kid. Okay? All right. The kid eventually was born, the mother died, right? And now the kid is on life support.
Yeah.
He's suffering, he's suffering massive brain damage, he's suffering, all these other things. They think he'll never leave the hospital, right? And who's
Terrible.
paying those bills? Is the right wing rallying around that family going, "Hey,
No!
we know we wanted you." No. It's now all on the family. Now that the kid is born, the right wing got what they wanted, and now it's all on the family.
Yep.
The family is now paying for everything themselves.
Not the
Okay.
first time that has happened, by the way.
And they fought in court. They were like, this kid is going to have no life. This kid is going to probably end up dying in the hospital. Kid has massive brain damage. The kid, all these things. This kid is going to need it. And if the kid does survive, need a lifetime of help. Lifetime of help that the Republicans are now cutting. The Republicans are now saying, we don't want to help anybody. We don't want to help these people. If you're not able-bodied, you should just die, right? Like, I mean, that's what they're essentially saying.
So much for the pro-life aspect
Right.
of keeping that baby alive. And I want to point this out with, and I forgot her name.
But it's not life, it's birth.
Pro-birth.
It's birth.
Absolutely.
Right? You have a right to birth.
Yes.
But nothing
and not
else.
a right to live.
Not
but
a right
I
to
want
life.
to point, before I lose my point here, no, the point I was saying is that the reason why this baby that baby ended up being born prematurely was because the mother's body was starting to decompose. They kept her on life support for so long. Like that, and if we didn't have the technology that we have, both would have passed away. We would have lost them both. Right? So we're all going back. We all are anti-science, except when we can turn a dying woman's body into an incubator.
A dead woman's body.
Dead woman's, right. Clinically dead.
Remember, she's dead. She was decomposing, right?
Right.
She was dead.
Right. She was clinically dead. We can use a dead woman's body as an incubator.
Right. And again, I go with leadership is about courage and integrity. Okay? It is not about what these assholes are doing.
Or who has the most money. And a leader could have prevented that from happening and could have
where was everybody else? Where were the protests to help this family out? Right? Where were, like, everybody's afraid of these topics, but these topics are real life. They're not in some, like, people keep talking about this theoretical bullshit as if somehow they have to live these lives.
Yep.
They walk away and then everybody else has to suffer with their decisions. Okay? That's the same thing with this healthcare issue, with the healthcare mess. That's the same thing. And again, I go down to, that was the point of yesterday's thing. We need organization in our local communities. We need leadership. We need people to take a stand, and we need people to come together and that have a belief system, and that we are one community. Okay. This is not about individualism. This isn't about capitalism. This is about us being a community and working together, right, for common goals. Okay. After all, they are our roads. They are not your roads. You don't own a road, right? They are our roads. We all have to live in this community, right? Like, let's all work together. Let's elect good leaders, and those leaders have to have courage and integrity. And if they don't have either of those things, then they are not your leader.
Right.
Okay? And maybe
you know what?
should rethink your vote.
Either rethink your vote, or you know what? I'll remind you again, you can run for something. Find out about runforsomething.org and be that leader. Be that leader that makes a difference. So.
And those people who run just to get the power, and we saw that here in Walk Hill with the Republicans, right? Who just get the power and are looking to cover shit up. Yeah, those people you got to stay away from. Those are the people you got to stay away from, right? Because now we're seeing it in the federal level too, right? And you can see it on the Democratic side in the state, right? Enough's enough. We need people with integrity. We need people who have a belief system, and we need people with courage. Because this is not a time for these weak ass, nonsense politicians, right? Who come and like to play lip service, but at the end of the day, turn around and say, we can't try because we don't have votes. Well, how do we know that we don't have votes? Have you tried? No, you haven't even tried. You gave up without even trying. Okay. If I told my kid to give up without even trying, right? Everybody would look at me going, wow, you're a terrible parent. you're a terrible politician.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do what any good parent would tell you. You're a terrible politician.
There you go. And with that, we're gonna wind this up here. This has been a longer conversation regarding a community event to support Tish James that wound
Hands
up.
off Tish.
That's right. Hands off Tish, man. And congratulations on your win, second one with regard to this. And in the meantime, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Leave us a comment. Love to hear from you. And click the bell so you get notified when new videos drop. And a reminder, we have we do our live events on Tuesday from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. All right. So we will see you soon. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.
Peace out.